Struggling to make ends meet? Broke as a joke? That's probably because you either spend too much money or it's really expensive where you live. Or maybe you just want to get away from that rat race and soak in some real America. Today, we're going to talk about the cheapest or most affordable places you can live in America. These places are going to be cheap for a reason. No one wants to live here. Haha, JK. Kinda. How do you measure how cheap a place is to live, you ask? You look on the internet, that's how. For this data set, we turn to the MIT Living Wage Calculator. It can pretty much tell you just how much it costs to live in each state. It measures things like healthcare costs, food costs, the cost of childcare, and of course, how much housing costs. For instance, in some states, $300,000 will buy you this. And in some states, $300,000 buys you this. And we can also tell you which states you don't have to work your tail off to live in comfortably. Unless you live in your mom's basement, then you're already used to that. So, put Groupon down for about 11 and a half minutes, you cheapskate, as we bring you America's cheapest states. I want a new state, one that won't make me broke, one that won't have me up all night, stressed about my dough, one that won't make me nervous, wondering how to survive, a state that makes me feel like I'm saving up for life, wanna save for life. We begin our super duper amazing tour of the cheapest states in the nation in Indiana. We don't talk about this state enough. It's actually not too bad a place to live. At least the people are nice here. Here in Indiana, the living wage is about $52,000 a year. That means if you make this amount of money each year, as a household, you can live comfortable enough. Sure, you'll have to work until you're 70 and you probably won't have a big old boat, but at least you won't be on welfare. And the housing costs in Indiana are about $9,600 a year. That means your mortgage or rent payments will be about $800 a month. Not too shabby if you ask me. In comparison, in our most expensive state to live, California, you need to make about $68,000 a year to have a decent life. And believe you me, that's nowhere near enough. Try living in San Francisco on $68,000 a year, and you'll be renting a bedroom in the Tenderloin district with a window that looks out on a sidewalk with poop on it. Okay, so we're pretty cheap, and we're not renting a car to get to our next state. Luckily, we don't have to go far at all, so we'll just hitch a ride with this guy. Lucky for us, it's summer, so we're not going to freeze our asses off. Here in Ohio, housing costs are the 7th lowest in America, where for about $787 a month, you can own this fine home in Dayton. Okay, so Ohio kind of stinks overall, which is part of the reason it's so cheap to live there. In comparison, our most expensive state in which to own or rent is Hawaii, where you need about $22,000 a year, or about $1,800 a month just for a roof over your head. A real big difference. What does the average American family need to live comfortably these days? About $28.50 an hour, or $55,000 a year. That's for the whole house. What's the average American housing cost each month? About $11,300 a year, or $950 a month. Of course, again, this is Ohio, where you probably won't really enjoy things. Ask somebody from Ohio. Harsh. We're gonna have to hitchhike to our next state because, well, we're cheap. But buckle up, because we're heading to South Carolina, where hopefully it's warmer. Here in the Palmetto State, the cost of living is really inexpensive. Cheap childcare and food make things doable. However, South Carolina is the 16th cheapest when it comes to housing costs. In fact, housing costs here are the highest for any other state on this list. Part of that is because the awesome coastline skews the numbers. South Carolina has perhaps the best coastline in the nation. But the rest of the state, not so stimulating. In South Carolina, the average home sells for about $250,000. Not too shabby. Now, if you lived in, say, Egypt, it's only $27,000 for a house. Or in Antarctica, where a house is free.
Did you know in Hong Kong you spend half your money on housing?
Are you serious, Mappy? Get out of here with that. Household costs by country. Wow, Mappy, you're right. You spend 49% of your income on a place to live in Hong Kong. It's also really expensive to live in China and Taiwan, too. Would you ever live in Asia, Mappy?
Yes, the girls are pretty.
I bet you'd be a real Robert Redford over there. Our next cheapest place to live isn't too far away, so we'll keep this hitchhike thing going. Who's this lady? As we take a spin in Kentucky. I have a feeling we're going to be in the South for a lot of this trip. Here in Kentucky, housing costs are actually the third lowest in the entire nation, behind Arkansas and West Virginia. Here, it's relatively more expensive for food than other states on this list, and for some reason, childcare costs in Kentucky are a little more expensive, at about $523 a month. But hold that phone. In Alaska, childcare costs are about $10,200 a year, or $850 a month. Is it hard finding babysitters in Alaska or something? What the hell? Life is slow in Kentucky, so if you want cheap and a whole lot of rolling hills, then this is your place. You can probably get a trailer and get a job down at Ramsey's and bust out 3 kids and still not be on welfare. That actually sounds like a good life. Of course, the dating scene down in Kentucky might be challenging.
No, seen it. Boring. There you go.
So we saved a little money, and we're going to take a plane to our next state. Okay, that and the bottle of Kentucky Owl 11-year-old straight rye whiskey batch number 1 that we bought was our entire paycheck. Maybe that's why we're broke. Here in Alabama, the living wage is about $50,000, or about $25 an hour. If both people in the house work, then you only really need minimum wage jobs to live a decent life in the heart of Dixie. And if it wasn't for the higher than average taxes here, or the above average healthcare costs, Alabama would be in the top 5 for sure. I wonder what the average Alabama person spends on their housing. Let's find out.
Hello?
Hey, I hear it's really cheap down there in Alabama. Is that true?
Yeah. I'm taking my girl out on a date tonight. I'll probably spend about $20.
What? $20? That's it? Wow, where are you taking her?
I'm sorry, who is this?
Hello, sugar.
Hey, I'm doing a video. How much is rent in Alabama?
I only pay about $200 a month for rent here.
Oh my God, where do you live?
I'm sorry, who is this?
Damn, people are so private these days. What the hell? I want to be in America, but it costs a lot in America. Everyone's broke in America. I want to save in America. So, we spent all our money on that stupid flight to Alabama. Now we're going to have to ride the rails all the way up to our next state, South Dakota. In South Dakota, a family can get by pretty comfortably on about $4,200 a month in income. Housing and food will cost you about $1,300 a month total. Not too bad at all. But the real kicker here is there's no income taxes in South Dakota. That means South Dakota has the lowest taxes in America. Sure beats New York, where people spend about $1,000 a month in taxes alone. Yuck. Of course, it is South Dakota, but with all your savings here, you can go out and buy up all the bierox and pheasants and walleye and chislic you want. What is this stuff? This is what South Dakotans eat? Okay, so we're starving after leaving South Dakota because they eat some really weird shit up there. Our next stop takes us to the wonderfully cheap and always backwards, except Nashville, state of Tennessee. Taxes? Really low. Food costs? Really low. Housing costs are slightly higher than most of the other places on this list, at about $810 a month. But that's still really low for most people watching this video, wishing their mortgage payments were $810 a month. However, it must be mentioned that Tennessee, overall, perhaps surprisingly, is the 6th most dangerous state in the nation. Especially Memphis, which is like hell in America. So if you move to Tennessee to start a better life and downsize, just don't pick Memphis. We might not ever hear from you again. Totally, like, if I lived in Memphis and some punk messed with me, I'd send him to jail so they never got out. I bet you would, super gay cop. I bet you would. Moving on, we just got word that we'll be heading to West Virginia, our 3rd cheapest state in America. We met a hillbilly named Barb who offered to take us to West Virginia, as long as we promised to try her famous squirrel stew. As you might expect, it's actually really cheap to live in West Virginia. That's why so many people live in West Virginia. You can get by just fine on $49,995 a year. But drive around this state and you'll see a lot of people getting by on far less than that. As such, there's no real motivation to keep up with the Joneses here. There's no Joneses. Since it's so cheap here, think of all the beauty products you can afford, West Virginia woman.
Mom, you have that problem too? We all get that not so fresh feeling sometimes. So what do we do? I use Massengill.
Now 2 fresh ideas from Massengill.
But for some reason, childcare costs in West Virginia are in the top 5. Is that because there's hardly anyone around to watch the kids, or are the kids brats? Okay, so it's starting to get late in the day, so it's time we check out our second cheapest state in which to live, Arkansas. Don't everyone jump up at once. Okay, so it's Arkansas, but what'd you expect? You get what you pay for here, which isn't a lot either way. An Arkansasian can make about $48K a year and spends only about $708 a month on rent or mortgages. That's probably half of what you spend, mister. And that's also the lowest housing costs in America. Of course, most homes are in disarray. Okay, not the whole state's trailer parks. As a bonus, here in Arkansas, you will subsist mostly on armadillo, lizard, and roadkill, which is free of charge. However, the reason it's the second cheapest place to live is people here earn the second lowest salaries. So if you want to move here to moving on up in the world, you'd better make another plan. Drum roll, please. Our cheapest state in America is Mississippi. Here in the Magnolia State, the cost to rent or buy a house is about $795 a month. That's really low. It also costs far cheaper here for food, childcare, healthcare, and every other care you can name. And of note, Mississippi has by far the cheapest childcare costs of any other state, by about $150 a month. You can get all daddy warbucks around here if you bring in anything over $50K. This lady obviously didn't appreciate the cheap cost of living here. She went and done stole a damn mail truck. I'll tell you what's not cheap. These Mississippi tamales I found online. $59? There better be like 59 tamales in there. And are they even going to get here? The mail trucks are all done getting stolen. Now some people might say, it's Mississippi. Why would I want to live there? There's a reason it's so cheap. Well, watch this and you'll see why.
Catch a wave at Rapids on the reservoir. You know they're playing volleyball. At Rapids on the reservoir. On the beach in the sand. At Rapids on the reservoir. They're jumping, swimming, and riding. Rapids on the reservoir.
If that didn't convince you should move to Mississippi, then I don't know what will. All right, so that's it. Our cheapest states in America. If you're curious, here are the most expensive states where you can live. If you live in one of these expensive states and you're thinking about moving away and starting over, maybe somewhere cheap and where your ex-wife can't find you, well, we gave you a good list to start looking into. Remember, there's nothing wrong with living a cheap life and being content with the way things are. If your car runs and you have your heat on and you can go out every now and then you have it better than like 70% of the rest of the world. The end.
Don't forget to subscribe and watch the next video. We also have a second channel called Home Snacks Junior. Those videos are also great. You should subscribe to that one too. Bye!